Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome back. Today we got a special early look at Blue Protocol Star Resonance. This is an upcoming MMORPG officially releasing to the West later this year. The game combines many traditional MMO features. You got open zones, there's group content with dungeons, various boss fights and raids, along with plenty of side activities, social events, and areas to explore, all with this Japanese anime styling and plenty of anime story in it to boot. Now for the upcoming release, they held a special preview event and have sponsored today's video. If you are interested in anything that you see here today, there is links available below. I got to play about 15 hours in total, certainly far from anywhere near finishing the game, not even close, but it did give me a nice introduction to many of the game's various systems, features, content, and activities, and that is what we're going to be taking a look at here today. So let's jump in and check out Blue Protocol Star Resonance. It all starts, of course, with character creation. You get to pick how you look. There's tons of different customization options here with sliders for all of the usual stuff. You got your face, your body proportions, your hair, and the various coloring of everything in between. They've also got a few presets. You can kind of pick one of these as where you're going to start, and then further tailor things from there however you like. Now, after deciding how you want your character to look, it's time to pick a class, and there's actually quite a few options here. The game has a fair lot of choices. These are broken up into 3 separate categories. It's essentially the Holy Trinity. They refer to them as guard, support, and attack. In other words, this is your tank, your healers, and your damage dealers. So for attack, there is the Marksman, the Frost Mage, the Wind Knight, and the Storm Blade. Support has Verdant Oracle, as well as the Soul Musician. And then for guard, they've got the Heavy Guardian and the Shield Knight. Now, I went with the last option there, picking the Shield Knight, as to my eye. It basically looked like a paladin theming character, which is something I personally like playing as, and then I was off. Me and my character jumped into the game, and things begin with you waking up inside of your bedroom located in the heart of the game's major city. This acts as the central hub. It is a densely populated area. There are loads of vendors and NPCs for questing, professions, and many of the game's various numerous activities. You're going to regularly be coming back to this town throughout all of your time with the game, not only for quests, but also for just the various things you want to do. So you wake up to immediately be tasked with assisting some friends with a problem that they're having. Big surprise. You're going to be spending then the next handful of hours progressing through the main story quest, meeting all sorts of new characters and unraveling mysteries, while also in the process being introduced to the game's many different systems and content types while being sent out into these open, explorable spaces. Now, beyond its visuals, the game takes heavy inspiration from anime in its storytelling as well. You've got a lot of cutscenes with all these over-the-top moments, crazy dramatic boss battles, and loads of dialogue between characters. Even during one-off side missions, there's a lot of back and forth between you and the NPCs you're speaking with. In fact, I think for like the first 3 or 4 hours, it almost felt like playing a single-player anime story-driven game, more so than it being an MMO, although that quickly changed after completing the main story quest of the first region, when things just really opened up. And I kind of felt like I had more free roam to just do all the different types of contents. But yeah, there's a lot of anime storytelling here. If you're into that, there's certainly plenty on offer. But again, it is an MMO as well, and with that comes a rather large assortment of content types and things to do. So let's take a look at those. Starting with like the game's structure. So this is what I would refer to as an open zone game. You've got multiple large zones to explore, and each of those individual zones are open. There's a lot of verticality and depth to the space, but there are loading screens as you move from one zone to the next. So you got your big major town, that's all open, and then you're going to load into the first adjacent zone. Then you've got that big adjacent zone, which is all open, with several exits leading directly to other zones adjacent to that one that have a loading screen before you're back in an open space. Now, the large capital city, this is again a very big space. It's got all your major vendors, NPCs for the questing, the profession, as well as queuing up for the various types of activities. And then connected to that main city, the first zone is Asteria Plains, and then off of Asteria Plains, you've got Windhowl Canyon, Everfall Forest, Dust Eye Woods, and then located off to the side, somewhere like in the ocean, is the Skimmer's Lair. Now, in addition to the main story quest, there's also a whole bunch of side stories, guide stories, world stories, region stories, and event event quest, along with the slew of content types and various objectives and tasks that you have, all of this takes you throughout the open zones. So you're going out there to go through the main story quest, and in the process, you might come across some side content activities or just fight some NPCs that are out there populating the space. But then also, all of these different types of content are located at particular spots. But before we jump into the content types, I want to reiterate here, like, these zones have a whole lot of verticality. There's a lot of height and depth to these areas. And to go along with that, the game actually has quite a lot of different traversal options for navigating the space. So you don't just have a single jump, you don't just have a double jump, you can actually do 5 simultaneous jumps, one after the other. Then in addition to that, you've got the ability to dash, you can run up walls, you can also hang from the walls just by stopping mid-run, you've got the ability to hover mid-air, and the game has a gliding/flying mechanic. It's mostly gliding, but there are various updrafts and wind tunnels that essentially have you given the ability to fly across the map, or at the very least, you can take an updraft really high and then glide your way down using some momentum to get to pretty much wherever you want. But then also, they've got like this sprinting, jumping mini game at one point as you're going through the progression. You eventually unlock this. And the way it works is, like, once you land, there is a bar that fills up. And if you time it properly, this is going to propel you up and forward, giving you momentum. And then when you land again, there is another bar. And again, you time it properly within the sweet spot. You hit jump again, and you're going to go flying, and you're going to do a somersault, and you're going to leap forward. It's a really interesting way to handle traversal rather than just like having a walking speed and then a flat sprinting speed. They have like a sprinting/jumping mini game. Once you unlock it, you're constantly engaging with it. You're never just doing the normal sprint. Like, there is a walk speed and a sprint speed, but eventually once you unlock this mini game, the whole time you're moving, you're doing this mini game of trying to time the bar and jumping forward, because it just makes you so much faster. There are also mounts in the game. Now, I only had access to the starter mount, but presumably some of these mounts will be much faster maybe than the sprinting, jumping mini game, and eventually you'll just use those. And then to go along with all of these different, like, because again, you've got 5 jump ability, you've got dashing, wall running, hovering, flying, gliding, the updrafts, and then the sprinting mini game that has you jumping and leaping forward. So you got a lot of traversal options here, and with that, there are various traversal challenges in the game. You'll just come across these little yellow orbs, and when you interact with them, it basically starts the mini game where you go around collecting the yellow orbs. They're going to take you up, over, and around things, having you crossing gaps and flying to areas or whatever. Collect all the orbs, get yourself a prize at the end. This is just something you come across as you're exploring. Also, while exploring, there are a lot of different collectibles in the environment. You're going to see treasure chests of different rarities all over the place. And then there are also gathering professions with ores, plants, and gems that you're going to find. Although you can't initially harvest these, you actually have to unlock them in the life skills profession. Kind of, you basically have a currency, you spend that currency to pick what life skills that you want to focus on. Now, being an action MMO, there is, of course, combat in the game. It's an action-based combat game. You've got a basic attack plus whatever your class's several abilities are. Now, once again, I picked what was basically the Paladin class, or as it's referred to here as the Shield Knight. It is a defensive-focused tanking class that uses a sword and a shield. So beyond the basic attack, I have, for example, a Shield Bash, which would increase my defenses. I have a Cleave attack that does damage in an area in front of me, but also builds up my class's resources. And then I've also got the ability to throw a shield that spins around me, damaging anything it hits. I can use some of my class resource to drop a consecration effect on the ground. This not only damages enemies, but also heals myself or any allies standing within it. And then I have an ultimate, which just basically drastically increases both my tankiness as well as allowing me to dish out more damage in a window of time. Now, those are the abilities that I'm currently using, but there is a larger list. I would say about double that, or maybe a third of what I'm actively using of other potential abilities that I could also be using. You just only have so many slots that you can fill, so you pick the abilities that you want, and then all of that stuff can be further leveled and enhanced, but we'll get to that in progression. Now, beyond your basic attack and your class abilities, you also have the ability to call forth the spirit of creatures that you've captured, basically, with each of them having their own unique attacks and abilities. There's a large roster of these potential collectible creatures. They're basically just new abilities, but the animation is you're summoning a creature, and the creature itself does the ability for you. Now, let's get into the content. Like I said, there's a lot of different content types and activities, things to do in this game. All of it basically works towards power progression, with the different types of content granting rewards, currencies, and resources that will fuel into the many various progression paths that this game has. Remember, it is a free-to-play MMO, so you can expect a lot of progression, a lot of resources, a lot of grinding that fuels into all of that stuff. And engaging in the different content types gives you different rewards depending on what it is you're trying to pump up, more or less here. Okay, so for content types, first we've got the Bureau Commissions. These are just basically like daily quests. They ask you to complete different challenges, mini games, and or combat encounters. Now these activities will actually be out in the open zones at some set location. So you first accept the commission, and then you head to the location where you will either engage with some NPC or some object that is at the marked area, and then that begins the event. Some examples of events that I've done are like dodge the robots. You got robots coming at you from every direction. You have to try to avoid getting hit, or crossing invisible bridges. These are actually kind of one of my favorites. You're going to be like, you're going to be up in the sky. There will be a path in front of you, but you will only see certain blocks, and then periodically the entire bridge will light up where you can see how it actually, where it actually is, and then it will go invisible again, and you'll have to remember where those tiles were so you don't fall to the ground. And then there's also just like basic combat encounters where it's going to ask you to fight off waves of enemies and then defeat a boss at an end. Either survive this or try to do it quickly within a set time period. Now beyond those Bureau Commissions, you also have what is called Unit X, this research facility. Sounds a little convoluted. It's really just a building where you can queue up for dungeon runs and or boss fights. So this building is located in the main city, kind of like to the northwest a little bit. And it's just, yeah, you can directly load into the game's various dungeon runs and boss encounters. So while I was playing, there were 6 static dungeons on the top of the platform, and you just walk up to it, you interact with it. That lets you pick to run that particular dungeon. You'll then select the difficulty that you want from 3 different options, and then you will load in. One nice feature they have is you can actually matchmake to get real other players, or if you want to load in solo, you'll just be given a group of AI companions. So if like I was running in as a tank and I queued in solo, and then I just got like a few damage dealers and a healer automatically tossed into my party, and we just did the dungeon, right? I didn't have to wait for a queue, didn't have to wait for other real people or whatever. They're fairly typical MMO dungeon encounters. You clear through various rooms, taking out trash packs of enemies, and then there's some final boss fight at the very end. The dungeons themselves are also there. They are out in the world, like they have static locations in each of the game's zones. In fact, you will first encounter and run these dungeons while you're playing through the main story quest, but then after that, you can just freely load into them directly from this Unit X building in the town. And then also in the front of the facility, so on the top platform are the entrances to the dungeons, but on the front was these rotating encounters referred to as unstable space, and these offered what appear to be enhanced challenge versions of one of the dungeons or just a single boss encounter that you can queue up for some bonus extra rewards. Then they've got what they refer to as Stimmin Vaults. This is basically a tower climb challenge. There are both solo and group variants here. This consists of 60 separate floors of ever increasingly difficult encounters. The floors unlock as each season progresses, so I think it's by the week. The first 2 weeks there's like 20 floors available, and then it goes up to the 40 and the 60. So you go through, you clear a floor before the timer expires, and then you're able to progress into the next one. And again, this can be done solo or in a group. They've also got open world hunts with a few different variants here. So there are elite hunts and then boss hunt challenges, and these are basically exactly what you think they would be. You've got this large roster of both elite enemies and bosses that are just out in the world. They're just located in the zones, right? So you track the one that you want the reward for, you go out to the location where it's marked, you find and eliminate it, and then you collect the reward that you were after. So I was able to go out pretty easily and take the elites down. They seemed pretty clearly soloable. The bosses were not, at least for my character and or my power level. Now maybe this is something that if you have one of the damage focused characters and you happen to be highly geared or even over geared, maybe you could take out these bosses solo, but I had no chance. I just wasn't dealing enough damage. I actually could tank a lot of the boss's damage, but maybe I could have done it, but it would have taken like 60 minutes for me to work down the boss's health. I was just nowhere close to having enough damage to deal with this boss. So it's probably something that particular classes or once you reach a certain gear level you can do. But in my experience, in the time that I played, I couldn't even take out the first boss that was on the list. It's just putting out that out there. And then they also have full-on world bosses. From what I can tell, these are very large and absolutely require a group. From what I saw, they have the recommended number of players to tackle this challenge at 20 people. So really curious to see these. I don't think this was an option in the playtest though, because I just didn't see a lot of people at all. I went to the boss location and I was like, there's nobody else here. So this is just definitely absolutely not going to happen. They've got class trials, which I thought were really cool. Essentially, these are aimed at letting you practice your class's role and mechanics in the PvE setting, giving you a particular task to complete within this arena. And there's one for each of the 3 roles. So for strength, guardian, and support, which again, that's just damage, tank, and healing. And there are 30 different levels to each path. So for example, again, I was playing as the guardian or the tank role. So I would load into the arena and then I'd be asked to either draw aggro away from my teammates, or to survive huge boss attacks without my health dropping below a certain level, or to drag mobs into my allies' damage dealing abilities, or to face huge boss cone attacks away from the rest of my team. Basically, it's like teaching you the mechanics of the role in these group contents. And again, they have that for the damage dealers, the tanks, and the healers. 30 levels. Pretty cool stuff. They've got the life skills in this game as well, gathering and crafting professions, tons for pretty much all of what you expect. Go out there, harvest resources, use those resources to make various gear and items and weapons and all of that. Potions. They've got alchemy. They also have fishing in the game. You'll come across various spots, obviously near the water, while you're out in the world, and there'll be like a little actually highlighted area. You go there, you hit the I want to fish icon, and then it's going to have you fishing. You got a % chance to get up all sorts of different rarity fishes, which you'll use for other stuff. They also have a lot of different social events. Like the game literally has a built-in sync to dancing with other people who are nearby button. So there'll be certain areas and certain time periods where there's like a whole bunch of music playing and people can go over there and you can all sync up your dancing. Apparently this is a big cute thing that they do. They put it in a lot of their marketing. Not really for me personally, but if you want to do some like social synchronized dancing with the other people in your party or just on your server, that's a thing in this game, and it's like all over the place. Progression systems. So this is kind of what you're going to expect. There's a lot of different ways to progress through the game. Everything will be collected and or crafted when it comes to gear, and the means of enhancing and powering them up look like this. So you got your equipment, weapons, armor, and various accessories. You've got class skills. So every class has a certain amount available. Like I said, you pick from those the one that you want based on your available hotbar slots. There's also those creatures that you can summon. Those are referred to as a battle imagines, and those aid in combat. And for both your equipment, so your gear, your weapons and accessories, as well as your skills, you are able to level and enhance this stuff through several means, making you progressively stronger, requiring various resources and currencies gathered from playing the different types of content. So like I mentioned, all those different types of content that I mentioned, there will be certain ones of those that reward very specific things for upgrading a very specific thing. So like if you want to upgrade your gear, you're going to get the currency to upgrade your gear from doing one of a few different activity types. And that works for all of the progression. For upgrading your gear, for upgrading your class skills. There are also modules, which are just like passive stat boosts that you get, and those can be enhanced. And then you also have a talent tree as part of progression. So it's pretty simple. You level up, you get points, and you spend those points, and it actually comes in the form of a currency. You spend that currency. There's a base class tree that rewards various passives to increase your effectiveness in combat, your damage dealing, and your healing. But then there's also, once that base tree is full, you get to pick from one of two further specializations that cater to different play styles. Yeah, you go down your base tree. Once that tree is full, you then pick a specializing tree. And again, it's one of those things where like you will get, there's two resources for upgrading some of the better nodes, and the second resource is harder to come by and again requires you to go out and do a very specific type of content to get that resource, or engage with the game's various currency exchanges and all of that, because again, this is a free-to-play MMO. There is also housing in the game. There's quite a lot of options for customizing how your personal space looks. You can even invite people in to check out your home and like hang out in there, do whatever. And again, being that this is a free-to-play MMO, it of course has the expected store, and that store includes lose pretty much all of the same stuff that other free-to-play MMOs nowadays have. So yes, of course, they're gonna sell cosmetics. They'll have different cosmetics, and the valuable ones, the ones that they think are more appealing to the consumers are gonna be the ones that cost more, right? But then they also have various resources and currencies that you can get. There are convenience features, including that they do in fact do this monthly subscription alternative. They refer to it as the monthly card. And by purchasing that, you get 30 days of boost to a bunch of stuff like increase to your storage, reduction in your taxes that you have to pay, and daily bonus rewards of just like you just get currencies every day that you will use to spend on various things, the cash shop or otherwise. They also, of course, as you probably expect, there is a cosmetic gacha system called the Wish. This has you spending a currency where you roll for a random chance to pull one of X, however many cosmetics are in the particular prize pool. And they do the whole thing where they list out, they're like, here are all the prizes, here's the percent chance to get each of the different kinds. And again, it's a cosmetic gacha. It's exactly what you think it is. Now, I didn't feel the need to engage with any of the stuff while I was playing, but I also only played for 15 hours. I'm sure at some point it would kick in later down the road where like, hey, I probably want that monthly card, right? Like the increased convenience stuff, the increased storage, the reduction in taxes, the daily bonus currencies, all that stuff would be nice if I'm playing on a regular basis. When it comes to these free-to-play games, though, I'm always like, hey, if I'm enjoying it and I'm playing it for a while, I'm happy to spend some money. In fact, typically with games like this, like I'll usually buy the monthly card for while I'm playing, and then by the time the card expires, I'm usually done playing as well. It's just how it happens to work out, right? Now, as for some initial feedback, again, I only played for 15 hours, so by far, this is just what it is. But within that time frame, I think they could change up the flow to how things start. And really what I'm talking about here is I think I felt like I spent a majority of my first like 1.5 to 2 hours talking to NPCs and watching cutscenes with only a few moments of actual combat in between. I would like that to almost be the inverse, if anything, or just a better balance between the two. I feel like there should be more combat and more action and more of me playing the game in the initial experience. I also I found it a little off-putting that the game just starts you out with like your 5 class abilities immediately unlocked. Now, as I mentioned, there are more that you can unlock and swap the ones that you want to use. But in MMOs, I generally prefer where like we start, maybe there's a bit of narrative, and then we get into combat, but you keep it simple. You give me 1, maybe 2 abilities and my basic attacks, and then you introduce me to the new abilities and mechanics. And it doesn't have to be over the course of 20 hours, right? Like, I'm not saying like I don't want to get 5 abilities until I'm 15 hours in, but maybe you should introduce me to those 5 abilities within the first 30 to 60 minutes instead of immediately starting out with them and then having to spend time like mousing over each one and reading about exactly what they do and trying to intuit how they will interact. Intuit it to me, show me through progressing from the base level to getting all 5, and then have the story woven in between. But right now, it was very story and dialogue and cutscene heavy with moments of combat in between. And those moments of combat, I'm like, I've got 5 abilities and I really don't, like, I'll just hit them. You figure it out over time. You figure it out by reading it. But just like if I had any feedback or suggestion to the intro experience, that would be it. Beyond that, though, like, I quite enjoyed the game's combat. I love the traversal. The look of the game was really impressive to me. I also appreciate that they're starting with this. 8 classes right at launch is pretty nice. Along with the fact that they've got a fairly large amount and different types of content to engage with. So yeah, looking forward to seeing more about the game, checking out more zones, and actually diving into endgame and all of that. But that just about does it for our preview of Blue Protocol Star Resonance today. Once again, the game is scheduled to release sometime later this year. If you would like to learn more and pre-register, you can go ahead and use the links in the description below. Hope you all enjoyed this preview of the game. I'm sure I will be diving in further once we get closer to release and once actual launch happens. Hoping, of course, to see more in-game, but also to actually engage in group content, because this preview test, it was fairly limited. Like, I only saw a handful of people running around. There just weren't a lot of people populating the server, so there wasn't anyone really around to do the group stuff with or to see how populated the world felt. So looking forward to getting into that in future, like, public test or whatever. But that's all for today. Thanks as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one.